Hey, Johan. You didn't play the timer.
I did not play the timer, but well, that's a first. I was so surprised. No, I want to check the stream, so it's actually going. And sure enough, it showed up here nicely on my.
Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Happy Wednesday. It is 4:30 Central Time. It means it's time for our office hours today without our shiny little countdown that we have in the beginning, but not without our intro. Let's get rolling. All right there, welcome back everyone. It turned out that you actually need to press the button for it to click the video. It's a new feature, but here we are.
Well, I can't give you too much of a hard time. I saw quite a bit of buzz on Twitter earlier today that it sounded like you guys had quite a successful driver and firmware servicing session earlier today. So I know that you've had a very busy day.
It was absolutely a blast. We were up working on it late night, and it was up quite early this morning, preparing everything ready, and they were hammering us with the questions. We did not have a moment of silence, which is how it's supposed to be. So good stuff there. The recording is available for download, for viewing, if anyone is interested and missed the event. But the modern driver management session was what we were presenting earlier today, and I was in pretty dang good company. Morris Daly and Mike Terrell. They know a thing or two about BIOS and UEFI and drivers, to pull it mildly.
I would say that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. I'm glad that it went well for you guys. I can't wait to. I didn't get to join this morning, so that's my plan for this evening.
Oh, perfect. So what's going on in our little world, Andrew, for the past week?
A busy week, for sure. I've got a few things that I would like to share, actually.
So you're telling me I should share your screen? That's what you're saying?
That would be a great idea.
Okay, then. Here we are.
All right. So we are not looking at my lab devices today, but we did have the Intune 2308 service release came out last week. Some cool stuff in here, especially surrounding Johan and I don't do a lot of Mac or mobile device management, but of course, I don't want to skip those things. There's some new features for Android management, Mac OS management. One of the big things that was generating a lot of buzz was this one right here. Win32 app configurable installation time. If I recall correctly, it's been 60 minutes not configurable for the whole time. Does that sound right to you, Johan?
That sounds pretty accurate to me.
All right, so now we have the ability to adjust that all the way up to 1 day if need be. So that is an excellent change. And then some new things popping up in the settings catalog. And this was another one here that I wanted to point out, and there's actually an announcement blog that I was going to talk about here. The Group Policy Analytics tool is now generally available, so that's been in preview for some time now, but I do have a post right here talking about that tool and the fact that it's now generally available. So this tool will allow you to import your GPOs and analyze, see how they will work in Intune, or what rather, if there are similar settings that you can use, basically. So that was a couple of big things coming out on the Intune side of things that are actually released or changed. And another one that I came across that looks interesting in the in development page here, the config refresh will be in the settings catalog for Windows Insiders. So this, as I understand it, is sort of like a group policy update type mechanism, is what it's sounding like to me. So that sounds
Yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, forcing an apply of the policy without having to do that complete round trip up like a sync would do. So that, yeah, that looked pretty cool. I did want to mention when you were talking about the um, good lord, it's one of those
Group
that,
policy tool.
yes. Just because a setting is available to migrate, it doesn't necessarily mean that you should migrate that setting. What we found over the years working with organizations, helping them on the little journey from legacy to modern, is that there are policies been around for 20 some years, because Active Directory has been around for 20 some years. And a lot of those policies, they are way back in the days, and are many of them are no longer needed. The knowledge on our users is much more improved than 20 some years ago. And back then, users were often local admin, and the policies that we put in place were there to prevent them from doing something stupid. So they were lockdown policies. Now the users are normal users, and we may not need many of those lockdown policies anymore. Plus, we are not usually running the same version of Windows. I hope not, because Windows 2000 and XP has been unsupported for just a little while.
A little bit.
Maybe do a little bit of an overhaul. It would be a good recommendation there. So that's my 2 cents on that part.
Absolutely great point. Thank you for bringing that up. On the topic of the in development page, so this is one of those pages, like we talk about the what's new page for Intune, which we saw over here. This is where the announcement for the various service releases or updates that happen throughout the month in between the service releases. This is a page that we've referred to time and time and time again, at least once a month, I would say, on office hours. The in development page is another great page to keep an eye out on, so you can see what's coming. And if we're lucky, we also get a little bit of an idea of what the dates look like for a specific feature. Now, when looking at this page, it can be a little bit challenging to figure out what's new on this page. So I came across this cool tip. I had not thought of this. What's on here? From Martin Himkin. If you want to read the latest changes on the in development page and you're not reading it regularly, you can simply use the change history on the GitHub page that's used for that specific document. So if you click over onto this link here, you can actually see all of the highlighted new code changes for that page. I thought that was just an awesome tip.
That was brilliant. Love it.
Yes, great stuff here. So I wanted to share that. There was an update to one of our favorite tools, the IntuneManagement tool here from Michael Carlson. So this is now on version 3.9.1. It's kind of funny. There was a couple of us on Twitter that were like, we literally just looked yesterday to make sure that we were on the latest version, and we were. And we must have willed this new version into existence, I guess. But he added support for the new driver policies, which is great. Some new settings in here, some default value changes. One thing that I know he specifically pointed out was conditional access policies will be imported disabled by default. Sounds like there were maybe some issues that you could have accidentally locked yourself out if you were importing conditional access policies. And then a few bug fixes here as well. So great tool. Johan, I know you're a big fan of it.
Heck yeah, it's an amazingly good tool.
Makes it very easy to document things, export, import settings between tenants. Very useful.
Comparing stuff that you have done.
Yes. I've used that many times when you have to write a policy that's an exception for a handful of devices or something like that.
Yep.
All right. And then I had something that I posted last night.
You've been busy.
It was a very busy 24 hours, I'll say. So I've been talking about writing this blog post for a long time, and I finally got a fire under me to get it going. But basically, yeah, a little bit. And I even talk about why in this blog post. Basically, Michael Niehaus wrote a great blog post the other day. I'll click over to that first and then come back to mine. About creating a wildcard cert on Windows using Let's Encrypt. And if you've used Let's Encrypt, there's a utility called CertBot that is used on Windows, Linux. Basically, this is what allows you to generate your Let's Encrypt cert. And he was using it for his cloud management gateway. And he happened to ask on Twitter if anybody had automated that before. And I happened to, and I've been saying for a long time I was going to write a blog post about it. And I said, all right, well, if Michael Niehaus is asking for a solution here, he's given me plenty of solutions in my career. I better get going and just write this thing. So basically what this blog post is about is, spoiler alert, automating your certificate management with a Let's Encrypt certificate against a cloud management gateway, and it's using a PowerShell module called PoshAcme. And this PoshAcme module will allow you to do the various challenges that Let's Encrypt allows for, that basically confirms your identity and will eventually issue a certificate. There's an HTTP challenge that requires you to open port 80 to the internet. I don't care for that one, especially at home, where I don't have enterprise grade security and network. But then we also have the DNS challenge and TLS challenge. And the DNS challenge is especially great, in my opinion, for a home lab, because you essentially write a TXT record up to DNS. The Let's Encrypt service will reach out and check to see if that TXT record is there as a means of proving you are who you say you are and that you own that domain you want a certificate for. So I played around with this quite a few years back and ultimately came across this blog post from a gentleman named Aaron Sadler. And he had written a post that at the time was exactly what I was trying to do. I wasn't working with the Cloud Management Gateway. I wanted a certificate for Windows Admin Center. And he wrote a blog post that would generate the Let's Encrypt certificate. So I just clicked over to his blog post, generate the Let's Encrypt certificate using whatever DNS service you used, and then it would install Windows Admin Center and configure it with that Let's Encrypt certificate. And then a second script he wrote that you could use as a scheduled task would check to see if the cert needed to be renewed. If not, it wouldn't do anything. But if it did need to be renewed, it would just automatically renew the certificate. And so I configured this a while back. It's been humming along. My Windows Admin Center installation is still running. It still has an HTTPS cert from Let's Encrypt, and it's run great. And then a little while back, I thought, well, why not do that with my CMG? So essentially, that's what I did. I took borrowed Aaron's basically framework for the creation of the Let's Encrypt script or cert, and the framework for that scheduled task that would check to see if it needed to be updated. And then tailored that to using my own DNS service. So I happen to use Namecheap for several of my domains. Configured that, got API access to my admin center, used that, and then the configuration manager PowerShell module to set a new certificate on my cloud management gateway. The one thing that I do point out at the bottom of this blog post is that with this current version of the script, this assumes that you already have a cloud management gateway. So the script is going to get the cloud management gateway that you have configured, and then it's just going to set the new certificate. And then this second script here is that script you can run as a scheduled task that's just going to automatically keep your certificate up to date. if necessary. The cool thing about this is when you request a cert from Let's Encrypt, you do have to put in a contact email address. So even if, at least in my experience, I would say, even if something's wrong with the scheduled task, it doesn't fire for some reason, whatever that case may be, you'll still get an alert email from Let's Encrypt that says, "Hey, your cert's expiring," which is sort of a nice built-in alerting mechanism. Very useful. But that's about it. Then at the bottom of the blog post, I just showed that you can verify that the specific certificate that is configured against the CMG is in fact installed and is a Let's Encrypt certificate. So this was a lot of fun to write. It's a little long. I did give a little bit of the backstory, and I did want to make sure that I obviously gave thanks and pointed out the efforts of Aaron and Michael, of course. But if this is something that you're interested in, having that Let's Encrypt cert, make sure that you actually have a public cert on your CMG, even in a lab, without spending any additional money. My opinion, this is a fantastic way to do it. So check this blog post out. If you see any ways to improve this, of course, go ahead and drop a comment as well. But yeah, this was a lot of fun.
All right then.
So that was about all I had for this week.
All right, excellent. Do we have any questions out there that we can answer? I did not mean to do that. I meant to do this. Here we are. Any questions at all? Please use the chat in your favorite channel for this stream. For those of you that are new to our office hours, we do stream on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, or X, whatever you decide to call it these days. I'm going to call it Twitter, pretty much like I'm going to call Azure AD for a while. So there we are. But if you do have any questions, let us know, and we'll be happy to answer. Don't see any questions coming in just yet. Gonna take a quick look on the YouTube channel just to see so there is no delay in between questions coming in there and our streaming software, because that can happen.
It's a rarity, but we have certainly experienced it before.
Yeah. Oh, it does look like we are good and live on that one. Checking LinkedIn as well real quick. Ah, there we are. That's a question for you, Andrew.
Mentioned not having an enterprise firewall at home. Untangle is a reasonable solution for your home firewall needs. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. I do run pfSense, which gives me pretty close to it. But I've still avoided opening port 80 to the internet, even if I had a segmented network for it. I've found, at least in this case, the DNS challenge was a little bit easier for me. But yes, I have heard the same about Untangle. That's a great great addition. Thank you. All right. Looks like we got another question. Is there any good way to update Windows during OSD? The built-in ConfigMgr task sequence stuff does not perform all too well.
That is absolutely correct, and it is a funny mention there, because back in the days when the ConfigMgr team had a user voice where you can request features, one of the top requests for years and years was basically make the OS update step in the sequence work. That was the only request. And just before they closed down the user voice, it was like it was changed, that the status was changed to planned. All right. But no, it's not the greatest option. And I would also say it's not even the right option, because it's better to make sure that the image that you use is already updated. I don't really see the point of downloading 4 gig of content and then download another 5, 6, 700 megs like 2 minutes after, where I could have just downloaded 4 gig and had an image patched already. What I do like to say, and I actually worked with a customer for 2 weeks about this, they implemented what I thought was a pretty clever solution, is they were having images that I added in, they updated them monthly, like you should. So they downloaded new ISOs every month and exported out the WIMPs. They had one for even month and one for odd months. So August, obviously an even month, they would download the ISO from August, extract it, import it into the even folder, distribute it, wait until the distribution was done, and then go into the sequence and just flip it to use the new image. Because otherwise, especially if you have a large infrastructure, during distribution of a new image, you may actually break deployments. And you don't want to do that. But updating a sequence is like close to instant. It's very, very quick. If you absolutely must do updates during a sequence, I recommend to use any of the PowerShell modules that are out there. There are plenty of them up on PowerShell Gallery. Forgot the one I used recently. It was the same one that Niehaus used. Let me see if I can find that little module. Because Niehaus used that in his Autopilot post on doing updates, because guess what? Autopilot doesn't support it either very well, like in at all at the moment. But this module was this one here, PSWindowsUpdate. This is a great PowerShell module that you can run, and haven't tried it in a sequence, but it's been running beautifully standalone. So maybe that. And another J for pfSense in the chat there, and I totally agree. I even stumbled across customers that are using pfSense as their main firewall.
Mm-hmm.
That gives you a little bit of an indication of how good it is. But in all my labs, I have multiple pfSense routers running, doing certain things, routing traffic, limiting traffic, shaping traffic, introduce latency, introduce package loss, basically mimic a crappy network.
I love it. I mean, you introduced me to using it in a lab a couple of years ago, and it really opens up a lot of flexibility for you to build out those scenarios. I mean, one thing that I learned from you is, you can basically configure your, you've got one VM that's in Chicago, and you've got another VM that's in New York, and you've got another VM that's in Sydney, and with all of those options that you were just talking about, limiting that traffic and everything, you can test your CMG, you can test any other internet-based imaging, cloud imaging, it really opens up a lot.
Sounds good. All right. I've got a follow-up reply there. I'm going to try the module. Great. Let us know how it goes. One thing I do know that you want to do with English, Johan, throw in the no restart switch when you run it in a sequence, so that script itself doesn't reboot, because that will make the sequence upset. These days, the ConfigMgr sequence is actually kind of good in detecting when something wants to reboot, but it's way better to simply tell that action to not reboot and then throw in another reboot yourself in the sequence. So, yeah, that was that. All right, anything else? Shiny questions. Love it.
Oh, yes. Oh,
And we have a whopping 34 minutes to go.
We actually just happened to get another question come in on YouTube.
There you go.
So this is from John on YouTube. Johan, I've seen your article about self-signing drivers to make Windows Server 2016 work on an Intel NUC. Does this still work as of Windows Server 2022? We have to do a similar thing on desktop hardware.
One of those, it should, but I haven't tried. I have not tried. So I don't know. But you can get a code signing certificate or kernel mode signing certificate and give it a go and see if it works. Or maybe try a few of the Windows 11 drivers, because technically Windows Server 22 is a very, very early release of Windows 11, so those drivers may work just fine. Some scenarios, even an old Windows 10 driver may work. So give it a go and see what happens. What can possibly go wrong with adding in an old driver?
This is why we have labs.
Yes, the lab, of course. Do not do that in production. Unless production is your lab, then do it in production.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly often, that's the case.
Yeah, what's that famous quote in our little part of the industry?
Everybody has a lab.
Yes.
And a few people also have a production environment.
Thank you. Especially with ConfigMgr, I think that's the case.
Yep.
John had a follow-up here. We found roadblocks with Intel LAN chips, which breaks the deployment process.
All right, sounds about right. Yeah, drivers are useful. So, yeah. John, let us know how it goes. Interesting to hear.
Yeah. Another follow-up, too, from the question about updating Windows. My Win is up to date, but there are sometimes just some bits and pieces that are missing. Thanks for the reboot advice.
All right, you're welcome. I mean, I get it. Sometimes you add in, you may have an older Office package, you may do install some runtimes. You just want to make sure that all of that is up to date. I get that, and it would be great if the default steps works, but a room for improvement. Oh, by the way, did you notice I dressed up for today? This is a Build 2014 t-shirt.
Oh, that's awesome.
The first developer conference I attended ever.
Yeah? How was it?
It was pretty awesome, because back then, the Build conference was also for the OEMs. So there were a lot of drivers and bias stuff in those sessions. Not all sessions, but there were some. So there were actually deployment sessions at the developers conference. It was pretty cool.
I bet some serious deep dives, too, into those flows.
Yep. I mean, I said that this morning, but developers who are writing drivers, they are wired differently than the rest of us up here. They are typically written in C or most often C, because kernels are written in C, but sometimes C++ and also assembly, especially video drivers.
Wow.
And that is not a language for someone who it's hard.
You won't catch us doing it anytime soon.
No, it's not on my to-do list for this weekend. No. I need to renew a certificate though. But that's another story.
Got an idea on how you could do that pretty easily.
Yep. This one, however, is one of the ones you have to buy. So,
yes.
yeah.
Yep. You do have those from time to time. No getting around it.
Nope. But I mean, Let's Encrypt is pretty fantastic as a platform organization. What they have done for the community is wow.
Oh. Yep, absolutely. Totally agree. There's so many things, like one of the things that I play around with, I don't talk about it often on here because we're typically talking about Microsoft management stack. But I run just a Docker node in my home lab with a few different Docker containers. And there's a lot of built-in code with the pieces that I use that just allow you to say, yep, I want this container to have a Let's Encrypt certificate, and I want this one to have a Let's Encrypt certificate. And to your point, they just make it so much easier especially for folks like us running home labs.
Oh yeah, totally. Speaking of cert, let's see if I can find that little tweet. I'm still gonna call it tweet. It was the Workplace Ninja conference that had some.
Yes.
That one will show up nicely. Give me a second. Oh, my search skills are definitely failing me on that one. Just saw it the other day here. Might have been either this morning or yesterday.
You can check your DMs. With me.
That would be a good idea. I can tell you I'm not the biggest fan of the new tweet deck. I think I'll go straight to the source. Twitter.com. I can't even find my messages. This is not. Here we are. Andrew, yeah, I wonder who he is.
Heard the name before.
Yeah, all right, I got it. Let me borrow that link and go ahead and actually share the screen. This little tweet totally made my day. I cannot wait to learn more about this.
No, I mean, this could be, talk about shiny. This could be shiny.
Yeah, totally agree. And there was a follow-up post from that.
There we go. It took a second to clear up there, Johan. So.
Oh, you mean the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. And then it was so this was the Cloud PKI news there. or update, and then there was a follow-up comment from Microsoft regarding that they will share more in the coming months. So maybe hoping we may have something for Christmas. That would be nice. That would be a nice Christmas gift.
Yep, I would say so.
It's like the missing piece right now. Just so all right.
Yeah, I
Cool
think that's
stuff.
one of the big challenges we hear about, right? Is getting certs out to these devices with Intune and yeah. All right. We did have a couple of questions and comments come in while we were talking about that. So, a couple from Amir here on YouTube. Do you happen to have a simple PowerShell script block in your secret toolbox that can be added to the beginning of any other PowerShell script, and it would launch a progress bar in its own run space in a separate window, monitoring the progress of the running script based on the current line that's being executed? We have several scripts running through MDT task sequence, which we don't want to expose their console output to technicians, so we run them as hidden. But basically, we want them to know that it's still running.
It's nothing that we've been working actively on, but in the our little pet project, or not so little, Friends of MDT and the PSD project extension to Microsoft Deployment Toolkit. We had Dick Tracy, a gentleman who works for Microsoft, helping us with writing a responsive deployment wizard with run spaces in PowerShell. And for those of you that have been writing user interfaces, PowerShell responsive usually don't belong in the same sentence, but he figured out how to do that so he could refresh things in the background. So maybe look into that wizard, and that will be in the PSDWizardNew folder. Can give you some inspiration on how to call this to update things in different run spaces in PowerShell. So I would start there.
Very cool. Did have a comment in the chat from Jesse from over on YouTube. I did see this announcement. Some of Microsoft role-based certificates are now open book, where you can actually read the MS Docs as you get through the exam. So I haven't. I don't know if you've seen any more details on that, Johan, but I did see the announcement, and that's pretty interesting.
I have not, but that is cool. Did you find, were there any link somewhere that we can share?
Trying to find one right now. Let's see here.
In the meantime, I can show that wizard that I mentioned earlier, assuming that I'm not running out of disk space on memory. I was close to that earlier. I still have some left. It was this one here. Gonna take a little while to load, but it's totally worth the wait. So this is not yet the wizard. This is just using BD info in the background, and we're having another process updating the text on the BD info background as the script progresses. And then it tries to connect to one of my web servers. This is for cloud imaging. And see if it can do that. And here we are with the wizard. So this is, oh, that was a dog coming in. You pick something that you want to work with, but this is a very responsive way of writing PowerShell wizards, which I like. So cool stuff.
Awesome. I did happen to find that link.
Yay. Do you want to? Do you have it on the screen?
Yes, I do. Looks like Jesse's about to drop it into the chat too, so I want to make sure he gets some credit there.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yes.
I have seen that YouTube is stripping links sometimes when you post them in the chat.
Interesting.
I'm not sure if it's a moderating feature or something, but they won't show.
Okay. Yeah, it took me a minute to find the actual official announcement too. I knew it was out there, but I kept coming up with news sites and YouTube videos and things like that. But yeah, I think this is an interesting change. I think one of the things that they point out in the blog post here is how often do you say in your daily life, "I'll just look that up," 100 times a day, at least.
I would never.
Yeah, nope, everything's just, it's all right here, right? Just, and you can access it instantly, no problem. So they did say down here at the bottom that that web browsing is restricted to the Microsoft Learn domain, so you actually will get an access denied message if you try to go somewhere else. But if you're going through an exam and want to look something up on Microsoft Learn, it looks like that is going to be available now.
Shiny.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Any other comments, questions, tips? Don't see anything else coming in there.
Oh, me either.
All right, and now I guess it's up to prove that I will be able to at least play the outro video instead of the intro video. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Thanks for the many great questions, and we hope to see you back next week, 4:30 Central Time here on Office Hours. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.